Gold was illegal to own in the United States from 1933 to 1974. Richard Nixon took us off of the gold standard on August 15th, 1971, and that ended the dollar being backed by gold and created fiat money. Welcome to the American Gold Exchange YouTube channel, educational section. I'm Dana Samuelson, president of American Gold Exchange. I've been in the precious metals and vintage US gold and European gold coin markets since 1980, 45 years now. And over that period of time, I've gained a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and dare I say, some wisdom in the process. And in this educational series, we're going to try and share some of that with you. This video is to help you understand why gold has been both money and currency, which are two different things, from ancient times all the way until the 1930s, and how our monetary system evolved from a gold and silver-backed system for most of man's modern history to a fiat-based paper-backed system in the modern era that we live in today. With that said, let's get on with our video. Why gold? Why was gold man's metal of choice as both money and currency for most of man's history? Well, number one, it's scarce. It's hard to find it. So you can't just find it and reproduce it easily. You really have to go looking for it. Number two, it's malleable. Once you do find it, it's pretty easy to make things out of it, like jewelry or coins. In fact, it's perfect for coins because it's impervious to the elements. Except for high heat, once you've made something out of gold, you really can't destroy it with salt water or some of the other things that are corrosive. And silver has similar characteristics. It's a bit more common to find. In historical times, you find about 20 parts of silver in the ground to 1 part gold. Again, silver is malleable, but it is a little bit more corrosive. Silver's not quite completely impervious in the same way gold is. Salt water, in fact, will corrode silver much more readily than it will corrode gold. So these are the reasons why gold was man's preferred choice for both money and currency. And these are two different things. Going back to ancient times, money is a store of value. A barrel of oil could be considered money, but it's not a good medium of exchange, which is what currency is. You know, when the New World was discovered by Europeans, what did the Indians use for money here in the US? Well, they used seashells, but seashells weren't a very good store of value. So they were really currency and not money. So that's the difference between money and currency. But for most of man's existence, because it's scarce, malleable, and impervious, and hard to replicate, gold has been a perfect choice for both up until the 1930s. So let's do a little bit of a basic review of what's happened over those centuries of time. Well, one of the first examples of gold that we have being valuable is King Tut's burial mask, which was buried with King Tut in ancient Egypt in 2500 BC. This incredible mask contained 22 pounds of pure gold in it, which shows you how highly ancient Egyptians valued gold at 2500 BC. And this truly is an incredible work of art. Well, we started to see gold coinage come into existence in 600, 500 BC. And these are examples of gold and silver coins going back to 340 BC. Different types of gold and silver coins. These pictures are from the Tyrant collection, which is one of the most fabulous collections of US and world gold and silver coins in existence today. You can go to the Tyrant collection website to see pictures of these groups of coins. It's truly an incredible collection. But man's history and a nation's history is embodied in the coinage of the day. And I'll explain that a little bit more as we go along. These are coins from the Ottoman Empire or the Turkish Empire going back to about 1300. And as you can see, they're in Arabic. But again, these are examples of gold coins as a medium of exchange and money, you know, from about 1300 BC. Well, let's get into more modern times. These are British Royal Mint made coins going back from 1746 to 1937, showing some of the more modern history of gold and silver coins that we have in existence today. Now, the beauty about being the king or the queen is you get your picture on the coinage. And these remarkable artifacts of history have survived the ravages of time. In the middle row, the first three pictures we see in gold first is Queen Victoria when she was queen as a young queen. The middle picture in silver with the little crown on her head is her Jubilee head design, which was after she was queen for, I believe, 50 years. And then the veiled head, which was the last portrait they put on her, they used of her on the British gold sovereign and other coins until she passed away. Then Edward VI became king, then George V, and then I believe it was George VI who abdicated the kingship in 1937, making the last vintage European gold coin. So sovereigns were minted as the coin of the realm during this whole period of time as money and currency. And we have examples of other European gold coins as well. Let me show you a few of those. These are 20 franc pieces, minted from 1865 to 1935. On the top is a Swiss 20 franc. The lower left is an Italian 20 lira. In the middle is a Belgian 20 franc. And to the right is a French 20 franc. These were minted on the same sized blank disc and struck with the same basically face value of 20 francs during this period of time. Each coin contained 0.1867 ounces of gold per coin, which equaled their 20 franc or 20 lira face value at the time, which made them in essence a golden euro of this period of time. So these coins could trade on par from Switzerland, Belgium, Italy, and France, country to country at the exact same rate of exchange, making them, as I said, the golden euro of the time. Let's look at what the US Mint has made during an equivalent period of time. These are some of the first gold, silver, and copper coins to come out of the US Mint when it was established. First in 1792 in the lower left is a half dime or a half dismy, which is equivalent to a nickel at the time. It's a tiny little coin about the size of the end of your pinky with a scrawny little eagle on the back. And these were made actually before the US Mint was officially in existence in 1793 and are rumored to have been minted from Martha Washington's sterling silver, which was melted down to make these. In the upper left is a 1793 chain cent, one of the first pennies the US Mint has ever made. These are incredibly rare coins today. They were meant to be used, and they were, but it had literally a penny's worth of copper in it at the time. And we call them large cents, which is how they were made until 1953, I believe, because of their size, which is about equal to a $50 in size today. And the US Mint started making gold coins in 1795. There's a $5 gold small eagle on the top and a $10 gold eagle on the bottom. And that was the largest denomination gold coin made by the US until 1850. So these are, again, classic rare coins today that are worth literally millions of dollars each because they're extremely high states of preservation. They're mint quality coins that have lasted for over 200 years since the time of their issue. And again, these pictures are from the Tyrant collection. And that brings us to the more modern era for vintage US gold coins. And these are the four major US gold coins, the most popular, widely traded US gold coins that survive the ravages of time today. First of all, we have the $10 Liberty that was minted from 1838 to 1907, the $20 Liberty, which is minted from 1850 to 1907. Then Theodore Roosevelt became president, and he decided that the picture on the coin was kind of stale, so he wanted to invigorate that. So we minted the $10 Indian, which is the same exact size disc as the Liberty, only with an updated picture on it from 1907 to 1933. And the same thing happened with the $20 Saint-Gaudens, which is what we call the $20 design from 1907 to 1933. It's based on the sculptor who drew the picture that the coin was made out of. And the $20 Saint-Gaudens was thought to be, since its time of minting, one of the most beautiful gold coins the world has ever seen. But this is really what matters to most of us today when we look back at these in historical perspective. Between 1850 in 1933, the gold price was fixed internationally at $20.67 an ounce. It did not fluctuate like it does on a daily basis today. So all of the gold coins that were minted in the world equaled their face value in their currency of issue, which is why you have different weights for those European gold coins, and why, with regard to the $20 gold coin in the United States, its weight from 1850 to 1933 contained 0.9675 ounces of gold. Because if you multiply $20.67, the internationally fixed price, times 0.9675, you get exactly $20 of face value. And the other coins, the 10, the 5, and the 2.5, were minted in direct proportion for weight and face value to the 20 based on that $20.67 internationally fixed price for gold until 1933. So these coins literally equaled their weight in gold. And then we stopped minting them in 1933 and to never mint them again. And these are the events that led up to that change. Well, first of all, we had the Wall Street crash in 1929 that led to the Great Depression. Then we had a new Roosevelt as president in 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who in response to the Great Depression wanted to stimulate the US economy, but he couldn't just print more gold coins easily. So he recalled the gold and made gold coinage illegal to own in the United States. This is the only country that did this. And people had a window of time where they were forced to trade in their gold coins for paper money, which existed from the 1870s, 1880s, all the way to the 1930s. But people until 1933 had a choice of one or the other in their hands. And President Roosevelt forced that choice out of their hands. And the result was paper currency from 1933, the April of 33 forward. Then in 1935, the gold price was revalued internationally up 75% to $35 an ounce. In one of the greatest thefts from the American public in history, we took all the gold coins in, and then 2 years later, we revised all that gold value up 75% internationally. But the knock-on effect was that it made all those other gold coins around the world now worth more in intrinsic value than their face value, which drove them out of circulation as currency because their monetary value was now 75% higher than their currency value. And that shows you the difference between money and currency. And what happened next? Well, World War II, which ravaged both Europe and Asia physically. The US remained intact because we did not have war on our shores. So when the war ended, the world had a decision to make. How do we have a monetary system going forward? And because the US manufacturing capacity remained intact, and we had at that point in time 20,000 tons of gold in Fort Knox, we decided that the dollar would become the world's reserve currency backed by gold. And the US vowed that we would never print more physical paper dollars than we had ounces of gold to back that currency. And that lasted until the late 60s when the gold price started to leak higher internationally because we got into deficit spending under President Johnson through his Great Society programs of Medicaid and Medicare. We had a first wave of inflation in the late 60s, and we also had the Vietnam War, which we were financing through deficit spending. So the world realized that the US didn't really have as much gold in their vaults as we had paper dollars to back it. And by now, because there was attrition out of our gold vaults, we were down to 8,200 tons or so of gold. We no longer had enough gold to back the dollar. And that's when Richard Nixon took us off of the gold standard, famously in August 15th, 1971, and he closed the gold window, which meant that you could no longer redeem those paper dollars for ounces of gold. And that ended the dollar being backed by gold and created fiat money, currency backed by nothing but the promises of a politician and the full faith and credit of the United States, which of course has led to a global debt explosion over the last 50 years, which is how we've gotten into the mess we're in today. But in 1974, my mentor, Jim Blanchard, led the charge for the private re-legalization of gold ownership in 1974. He knew once we quit backing the dollar with gold, the dollar would lose purchasing power, and politicians would be tempted to inflate the value of the currency, which would deflate the purchasing power of the dollar relative to other things. And Jim championed the re-legalization of gold ownership in 1974. And let's take a look at what's happened to the gold price since it was revised up a little bit in the late 60s. Here's a gold chart from 1970 to 2025. And you can see over this period of time, gold has moved up in value 100 times in value, while the dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power relative to what it could buy when it was backed by gold in 1970. That's the end of this section, explaining why gold was both money and currency until recent times. So thank you for your time today.